You have had the thought. Maybe at 11 at night, sitting at your kitchen table with your laptop open, and for different bills due this week and a bank account that cannot cover all of them simultaneously. The thought goes something like, what if I just didn't? What if I closed the laptop and ignored all of it for a month? What would actually happen? Would the world end immediately? Would someone show up at the door? Would the lights go out? Would it be as bad as the anxiety makes it feel? Most people have this thought and then immediately feel guilty for having it and push it away without ever getting an honest answer. Today, I am going to give you the honest answer, not to encourage you to stop paying your bills, but because the actual timeline of what happens when you do is one of the most misunderstood things in personal finance, and understanding it clearly. What actually happens on day 1 versus day 30 versus month 6 versus year 1 changes how you think about financial hardship, what options you actually have, and what decisions are reversible and which ones are not. This is the brutal timeline nobody shows you. My name is Sig, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, debt systems, and the gap between how terrifying financial problems feel and what they actually produce in reality when you understand the timeline clearly. Subscribe to this channel right now if you want honest information about how the financial system actually responds when things go wrong, and give this video a thumbs up if it gives you clarity that the anxiety was not giving you. Because understanding the timeline is the first step toward making the best decision available to you. Let's walk through it. Before we get into the timeline, I need to establish something important, because the consequences of not paying your electric bill and the consequences of not paying your mortgage are not the same thing. On the same timeline, and treating them as equivalent leads to bad decisions. There are 4 categories of bills, and each one has a completely different consequence structure. The first category is secured debt, your mortgage and your car loan. These are loans where the lender has a legal claim on a physical asset, your house or your car. If you stop paying these, the lender can eventually take the asset. The timeline is longer than most people think, but the end consequence is the most severe. The second category is unsecured debt, your credit cards and personal loans. There is no physical asset attached. The lender cannot immediately take anything from you, but they have other tools that unfold over a longer timeline. The third category is utilities, electric, gas, water, internet, phone. These are service providers, and they can disconnect the service. They cannot garnish your wages or sue you the way a lender can, but they can shut off something essential. The fourth category is subscription services and non-essential bills, streaming services, gym memberships, software subscriptions. Stopping these has almost no serious consequence beyond losing the service. Understanding which category each bill falls into is the foundation of making intelligent decisions when money is short. Not all bills deserve the same level of panic, and knowing which ones deserve priority attention and which ones can wait is genuinely valuable information. Let's start with credit cards, because this is what most people are thinking about when they have the thought. You have a credit card bill due, you cannot pay it. Here is what actually happens day by day and month by month. Day 1 through day 30, you miss the payment. A late fee hits your account. In 2026, that late fee is capped at $8 for the first missed payment under the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's recent ruling. Though some cards still charge up to $30 depending on when your account was opened, your credit score takes a hit the moment the payment is reported as 30 days late. This is typically the first business day after 30 days have passed without payment. The hit to your credit score from one 30-day late payment is significant. Depending on your starting score, it can drop between 60 and 110 points. That drop matters for future loan applications, apartment rentals, and in some states even job applications. Day 31 through day 60. The card issuer has now reported you as 30 days delinquent to the credit bureaus. Your interest rate may increase to the penalty APR, which on most cards is between 29 and 30%. The card issuer is calling you repeatedly. They are also sending letters. This feels extremely stressful and is designed to feel extremely stressful because the card company wants you to pay. Day 61 through day 90. You are now 60 days delinquent. Another late fee. Another credit score drop. The card issuer is escalating their contact attempts. Some issuers at this stage will offer hardship programs that were never advertised, reduced interest rates, temporary payment deferrals, settlement options. These exist and are worth asking about. Day 91 through day 180. At 90 days delinquent, most card issuers charge off the debt. This sounds worse than it is. A charge-off does not mean the debt disappears. It means the card company has written it off as a loss on their books and either sold it to a debt collector or transferred it to their internal collections department. The charge-off is reported to the credit bureaus and is a serious negative mark that stays on your credit report for 7 years. Day 181 onward. If the debt has been sold to collections agency, you are now dealing with a debt collector rather than the original card company. Debt collectors can contact you by phone, mail, and email. They cannot threaten you with jail, use obscene language, or call at unreasonable hours under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. What they can do and eventually will do if the amount is large enough is file a lawsuit to get a court judgment against you. If they get a judgment, they can in most states garnish your wages, meaning take money directly from your paycheck, up to 25% of your disposable income depending on the state. Here is something that genuinely surprises most people about mortgage non-payment. The timeline from missed payment to foreclosure is much longer than most homeowners realize, and knowing the actual timeline matters because it changes how you think about options. Day 1 through day 15. You missed your mortgage payment. Most mortgages have a 15-day grace period built in. If you pay within those 15 days, no late fee and no credit bureau reporting. Day 16 through day 30. You are now officially late. A late fee, typically 1 to 5% of the payment amount, hits your account, but the servicer has not yet reported you to the credit bureaus as delinquent. Day 31 through day 120. Your servicer reports you as 30 days delinquent at 30 days, then 60 days delinquent at 60 days. Your credit score is dropping. The servicer is calling and sending letters. Critically, at this stage, federal law requires your mortgage servicer to inform you about loss mitigation options, loan modifications, forbearance agreements, repayment plans. These options exist, and servicers are legally required to tell you about them. Day 120. Federal law generally prevents servicers from beginning the foreclosure process until you are at least 120 days delinquent. This is a legally mandated waiting period that gives you time to explore alternatives. Month 4 through month 12 and beyond, the actual foreclosure process begins. Depending on your state, this is either a judicial process that goes through the courts or a non-judicial process that does not. Judicial states like New York and Florida have foreclosure timelines that can extend to 3 years. Non-judicial states like California and Texas move faster, often 6 to 12 months. The point is that losing your home to foreclosure from a missed mortgage payment takes months to years, not days or weeks. This does not make it less serious, but it does mean that someone who has missed 2 mortgage payments has significantly more time to find solutions than most people in that situation realize. Here is what actually happens when you stop paying utilities, because the fear of having the lights turned off is one of the most visceral financial anxieties most people carry, and the actual timeline is often more generous than the anxiety suggests. Electric and gas. Most utility companies send a past due notice after your payment date, then a disconnection notice typically 10 to 21 days before the scheduled disconnection, depending on your state. Most states have consumer protection laws that require utilities to give you a specific notice period before disconnecting service. In many states, utilities cannot disconnect service during extreme weather events, to households with documented medical conditions, or to households with children under certain circumstances. If you receive a disconnection notice, you have options: payment arrangements, utility assistance programs, state and federal low-income energy assistance. These exist specifically for this situation. Municipal water services are typically even slower to disconnect then electric and gas and many municipalities have additional protections. Water disconnection for non-payment is heavily regulated in most states. Internet and phone. These will be disconnected faster than other utilities, but the consequence is less severe, and service is restored quickly once payment is made. Here is the section I want you to pay close attention to, because the fear of what bill collectors and lenders can do to you is often larger than the reality, and knowing the actual limits of their power changes how you navigate a difficult financial situation. What they can do? Report you to the credit bureaus, charge late fees and penalty interest, send your debt to collections, file a lawsuit to obtain a court judgment. If they get a judgment, garnish wages in most states up to 25% of disposable income. In some states, place a lien on property. In some states, levy a bank account. What they cannot do? Have you arrested for unpaid consumer debt? In the United States, you cannot be jailed for failing to pay credit cards, medical bills, or most consumer debt. Threatening arrest for unpaid consumer debt is illegal under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Show up at your home or workplace unannounced with legal authority. Call you before 8 in the morning or after 9 at night. Use threatening, abusive, or obscene language. Contact you after you have sent a written request to cease communication. The fear that surrounds unpaid debt is legitimate because the consequences are real and serious, but it is also deliberately cultivated by an industry that benefits from you feeling more powerless than you actually are. Understanding your actual rights and the actual limits of what creditors can do does not eliminate the problem. It gives you the clarity to address it strategically rather than from a place of pure panic. Let me give you the honest 6-month picture for someone who stops paying all unsecured consumer debt simultaneously, credit cards, personal loans, because I think seeing the full arc is more useful than the bill-by-bill breakdown. Month 1. Late fees. First credit score drop. Stress calls from creditors. Month 2. More calls. Second credit score drop. Some creditors may offer hardship programs if you ask. Month 3. 90 days delinquent. Accounts may be charged off by some creditors. Serious credit score damage. Collections involvement beginning for some accounts. Month 4. Accounts in collections. Potential lawsuits being considered by larger creditors. Month 5 and 6. Lawsuits may be filed by creditors for larger balances. Continued collections contact. Credit score at significant low point. The credit score damage is the most durable consequence. A serious derogatory mark stays on your credit report for 7 years. In that time, you will pay higher interest rates on any new credit you obtain, face more difficulty renting apartments, and in some states and industries face employment complications. This is the real cost of a prolonged period of non-payment, not jail, not immediate asset seizure. 7 years of financial life where your cost of credit is higher and your options are narrower. Here is the most important section of this video, because the question this video is really answering is not just what happens if you stop. It is what should you do when you genuinely cannot pay. And there are real options that most people in financial distress do not know exist or do not believe are available to them. Option 1. Call your creditors before you miss a payment. This is the option most people never use because it feels humiliating and because they assume it will not work. It works more often than you think. Card companies have hardship programs that are not advertised publicly, reduced interest rates, temporary payment suspensions, modified payment plans. These exist because a creditor who helps you stay current is better off than a creditor who has to sell your debt to collections at 30 cents on the dollar. They would rather work with you. Option 2. Nonprofit credit counseling. A nonprofit credit counselor can negotiate with your creditors on your behalf to set up a debt management plan. You make one monthly payment to the counseling agency, and they distribute it to your creditors. Interest rates are often reduced significantly. This is not debt settlement. It does not damage your credit the way settlement does. It is a structured repayment plan, and it is available to almost anyone with unsecured consumer debt. Option 3. Debt settlement. If you genuinely cannot pay the full amount owed many creditors, will accept less than the full balance as final payment, especially once the debt is in collections. This does damage your credit, but it resolves the debt. And settled debt is better than debt that continues accumulating interest in collections indefinitely. Option 4. Bankruptcy. For people with severe debt levels relative to income and assets, Chapter 7 bankruptcy discharges most unsecured consumer debt completely. The credit damage is serious and lasts 10 years on your report, but for someone already in collections, with judgments being pursued, it may provide the clean slate that allows them to rebuild from a stable foundation rather than spending years in a debt cycle that is mathematically impossible to escape through minimum payments. The point is that just stopping, not paying, not communicating, not taking any action is almost never the best option available to you, even when your financial situation feels genuinely hopeless. The best option is almost always one of these four, depending on your specific situation. Let me end with something genuinely practical, because I know some people watching this are not in a theoretical situation. They are sitting with a real pile of bills and not enough money to cover all of them, and they need to know which ones to pay first. Here is the priority order based on the severity and speed of consequences. First priority: housing. Whether you rent or own, your housing payment comes first because losing your home has the most severe and immediate impact on your physical life. Second priority: utilities, specifically electric, gas, and water. You can live without internet. You cannot function without heat and water. Third priority: food and medication. Not bills exactly, but before any financial payment, these come first. Fourth priority: car payment if you need the car for work. If losing the car means losing the job, the car payment protects the income that covers everything else. Fifth priority: secured debt beyond the car if applicable. Sixth priority: unsecured consumer debt, credit cards, and personal loans. The consequences of non-payment here are serious, but they unfold more slowly and are more negotiable than the categories above. Last priority: subscription services and non-essential expenses. Cancel these immediately if money is genuinely short. Streaming services, gym memberships, software subscriptions. These go first. This order is not about which bills are legally most important. It is about which non-payment consequences hit you fastest and hardest in your actual physical life. The credit card company can damage your credit score. The landlord can start eviction proceedings. The electric company can turn off your heat. The priority order reflects that reality. Here is what I want you to take from this video. The thought you have had about what would happen if you just stopped is a completely normal thought that millions of people have had. Financial pressure creates that thought. It is not a moral failing. It is a stress response. And the honest answer to what would actually happen is this: the consequences are real. Credit damage is serious and lasts years. Wage garnishment is possible if lawsuits succeed. Losing housing or utilities are genuine risks if mortgage or utility payments are stopped. But the timeline is almost always longer than the panic makes it feel. You almost certainly have more time and more options than the anxiety is telling you. And doing nothing, just stopping without communicating, without exploring options, without understanding the timeline, is almost never the best available choice, even in genuinely difficult situations. Call your creditors. Talk to a nonprofit credit counselor. Understand your rights under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Know which bills to prioritize when money is genuinely short. The financial system is not designed to be kind when things go wrong, but it is also not the immediate catastrophe that the fear makes it feel like at 11 at night sitting at your kitchen table with the laptop open. You have more options and more time than that moment feels like you do. Use them. Now that you understand what actually happens when bills go unpaid, the next question is how to build the financial foundation that prevents you from ever being in that position in the first place. In my next video, break down the 3 savings levels where your entire life changes, and show you exactly what crosses each threshold and why the first one is closer than you think. That video is on the screen right now. Watch it next.